Hi, my name is Wayne, and this is Type Tested. Now that I have all the type bars and all the links installed on this KMM, it is now time to reinstall the type rest. However, that presents a different problem. So, if you'll permit me to show you, what we have here is the original type rest from this. And as you can tell, it's seen better days. Let's see if I can get the lighting a little better here. You can see that all the type bars have put quite an impression in here, and there is actually this little bit of additional felt which was put on here after the original type rest apparently failed. But the interesting thing here is that this was actually stitched on, as you can see these points here. I'm not quite sure why that was done or when, but it appears to have been on there a long time. Now further, if you look, you can see, zoom in here a bit so you can see this clearly, that there is actually steel at the core of this type rest. And what we have is a sheath over the steel core, which is then wrapped back around and then held in place by this pin. So I've never actually taken apart one of these Royal type rests, so we're going to see what that looks like, and I have gathered materials that I think will be appropriate to repairing this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off this little addition here, just to make it easier to handle. A little pocket knife. Now if I wanted to, I could just glue a piece of felt on this and call it done. And that may be the better option, but I'd kind of like to get this replaced. So I'm going to take this off anyway, and we'll at least have a look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this clip back. And interesting here, two clips go one direction, one goes the other. Keep them from sliding around. So I'm just going to get a small screwdriver here, get under the clip, and straighten it out. If I can do this without causing problems for myself. There we go. Same thing over here, lift it up. This one's a little harder to get at, but same drill. Now with that, hopefully I will be able to lift this off of the bracket itself. Okay, there we go. So now here's the type bar bracket. Not really happy with the light today, but everything's black, so that's what it is. And that looks in good condition. I don't think I'm going to have to do any rust remediation or anything on that. Now let's look at this. So let me unfold this here. And it looks like it's going to be very interesting to get past that, so I don't exactly know how this is going to work, but I do want to see exactly what's inside. Feels fairly flexible, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm staring at. with these tabs in place, I'm not exactly sure how to get this off, or how they even got it on. See, if nothing else, if I could at least rotate this 180 degrees, I'd be able to put a fresh surface on top. And that might actually be the best option. But I still have to get this over the tab. Okay, so this may be a total mistake, but I am going to go ahead and cut this off. I mean, the worst I can do is get myself in a serious problem. It would hardly be the first time. So let's see, I was working on this end. Let's start here. Start off of it and just open the sleeve up. And here we have the core of the tie rest. So several metal strips, and then a final thicker steel strip, no, maybe somewhat thicker, that has the tabs on it. So let's see how it looks down here. So even if this is a bad idea, it's still good from the academic standpoint of documenting how these things were constructed. So if it doesn't benefit me, it will hopefully benefit someone else. And this also means that the best method for me to open this up is to slide along the top here. Try very hard not to shred my finger. Okay, so here's the tab. All right, there's a little bit of rust here, but that can easily be cleaned up. So a little bit of corrugated steel. And how many layers do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, looks like 8 layers. So long, slightly shorter, long, 2 slightly shorter, and then 2 longer and 1 slightly shorter layer. All right, back to opening this up. And the section that was damaged, of course, is the easiest to open up. Now, I am not exactly sure how all of this was put together in the first place. So here's the core. It's just a cloth sheath, braided cloth. And what I have here, pardon me while I get it. What I have here is a piece of heat shrink cable sheath. So what this will do, I'll be able to take a piece of this, open it up, and use a heat gun to secure it in place. Now that means I'm going to have to pay careful attention here, and I'm going to have to make sure I have enough overlap so I can also do what was done before. And I chose this size because it will allow me to go over the little hooks here. So let's see, what can I do here? I'm trying to think about how to keep these things together in a way that won't interfere with the yeah, let's just see if I can't slip it in. So there's the second one. A little further. That little tab makes it hard to get through here. So even if, like I said, even if this isn't the best way to get this done, it's still a good academic exercise into exploring the construction of the Royal Type Bar. I don't know how many Royals use this particular setup, or the later ones use something different. I haven't bothered to try to examine. But I know this one does, and I believe, now this is a KMM, so the KHM obviously is going to have the same thing. The 10 is probably going to have the same thing. I would not be surprised if the HH and the FP also have this. Typewriters made after that period, not necessarily. And of course, anything past the 440 is not the Royal Standard design. And you can see that I'm having trouble with the little tabs there penetrating the sheath, but almost there. And now things are starting to spread out. That's what I wanted to avoid. Let me try to get a little bit more over here. What I maybe should have done is put everything else in and then tried to slip the tab thing in at the end. And I need another couple of inches. Now when I paused, what I was doing was I was trying to gauge how much this material would shrink to know which of the two sizes that I bought that I would need to use. And it turns out this will shrink quite a bit. It's advertised at 2:1, but it'll go over that. Okay. Now, I've got it in. Let's make sure I've got all the steel lined up. Apologize for kind of working off camera. I was kind of looking around to this side of it. So I can cut it just past this little tab like the other one was. And I can do the same thing over here. So let me go ahead and get this carefully lined up. Make sure everything's straight. Try to get it in the center. Pierce the sheath with the tab. Do it again over here. So I can fold it over. Same thing over here. Now, I'm going to pause while I fetch a pair of scissors. Okay, and I got these because I wanted to make a nice clean cut. I'm going to do this about, I don't know, about a 1/2 inch beyond the tab. that there. This one over here. Get in there and stay there. Right. Put the excess away. So I've got this here. Now, let me find a place to plug in my heat gun. Give me a second. Okay, now that I've got that done, turn this on low setting and back up a bit so you can see more what I'm doing. The problem with the heat shrink is that it doesn't just shrink diametrically, it also shrinks linearly. Now, put this back in here. Start with the middle tab there. Turn it around. It's apparently directional. Yeah, the tab is off. This hole is offset from the center, so there is an orientation. Something I didn't notice when I took it out. Okay. Now I may have a little bit of an issue here. So I think the heat shrink with it overlapped here is proving too thick. There we go. It is in, but barely. I think I may be able to apply a little pressure. Get her to poke through a little more. And then can roll that down. Same thing over here. And then same thing in the middle, even though that's in pretty good shape. So, not perfect, and I think I need to go back and deal with this a bit. Ow. Surprise, heat guns are hot. Okay. So, not perfect, but it will do. And to quiet it down, and this is tube sitting a little off of the type rest, so I'm going to see if I can't shrink it down a little bit more. And that's as good as I'm going to get. Anyway, so given that, I can actually make do with this, but since this is more of a plastic material rather than the cloth, I am also likely going to use some contact cement and put this piece of felt on, which I've cut for this purpose. And with the fact that this is a plastic material, the contact cement should bind just fine. And then we will have a good type rest. Anyway, not a perfect fix, but it does the job. And I really wish I could have just turned this around, but now that I know better how it's assembled, I could have done that by pulling out the other bits on the strips of metal on the other side of the hook and turned that around and then put those back in. So that probably would be the better fix if I decide to do this again. So keep that in mind. So don't pull the hook at don't pull the hook bit out, but pull the other strips of metal out and then put them back in one at a time. And it'll be a little hard to work them in, but it will do the job. Then orient the clip end where you want and put the others back in. And before I sign off, just to show you the finished product. So you can see, I mean, it's not exactly pretty on the ends here, but it will certainly do the job. Now, if you'll give me just a moment, I'll put it in place. There you go. That's what it looks like when it's in place. Put all these down. Separate. Thank you. See, I've got a nice clean arc. Everything's sitting down. And barring some interference issues, which I will work out. I have a nice clean typewriter. So anyway, fixing a Royal KMM type bar or type rest. Once again, my name is Wayne and this is Type Tested.